Our session here this morning is about goal setting, and when you've got those goals or that vision, how to anchor it into the marketing plan so that you can go, this is what I want to achieve in my life or in my business, in terms of what material things I might want or what type of lifestyle I might want, and then to say, where do I need to be in the forever opportunity in order to be able to create the level of income I need to achieve those goals. So that's what the session's primarily about. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about the whole principle of goal setting, and it's something I'm really, really passionate about. I can't even remember how long I've personally been setting goals for, but it's probably 4 decades. I was self-employed from the age of 19. I've never really worked for anybody else. I've always been an entrepreneur. Most of my contract actually with Forever is more of an entrepreneurial type contract. And for me, the difference that's made the difference is having a clear idea of where I want to be a year from now and 5 years from now. I'm going to talk about some of the science behind that. And for me, one of the things I'd love to see more of is this whole concept of visualization and goal setting being taught to our children. And to my knowledge at the moment, it's not in the curriculum that the teachers teach to our kids, but I think it's an important thing for you to share with your kids. 25 years of Forever, the number of kids I now meet, in fact they're not kids anymore, I met them when they were young, some of them are adults now, but the children of our business owners, it's incredible the differences I spot in the children of our business owners compared to perhaps other children that I meet. That whole immersion that they've had in growing up with their parents who've been goal orientated and vision orientated has definitely had an impact with them. And there's tons of research to suggest that if you know where you're going to go, there's a better chance that you're going to get there. So today's about the time of year we're in is ideal for creating a vision of where you'd like to be sat in this pod or one of the other pods 1 year from now. What difference would you like to see? And as it says on the slide, where there is no vision, people perish. Doesn't mean they physically die, that's not what it means. It just means that they don't move on. You know, the vision and the goals that we have are the fuel that help us do the things that we know we should be doing. Because the absence of that vision means that we are more likely to get knocked off track by distractions, perhaps doing the things that we feel more comfortable with rather than the things that we really should do, or getting knocked off track by people who don't have a vision. There are very many people that you are going to meet who won't necessarily endorse what you're trying to do. I spent a lot of my early years from school onwards playing football at a very amateur level, by the way, nothing like professional, but I can promise you that if I went back to the same pub whose team I played for, there are probably some of my friends from 35 years ago still sat on the same bar stool, still moaning about the same state of life that they're in. And it's because they have no vision, no goals. They expect that the world will deliver, or the government, well, that's not a political statement, but the government will deliver, or some miracle will happen. And of course, for most people, that miracle is buying the lottery ticket. You stand near any news agents or outlet on a Saturday and very many people are buying the lottery. And that's their goal setting. That's their vision of changing their lives. I might win the lotto. And of course there was a massive winner this week, which was a lovely story in the press. But statistically, there's more chance of you being struck by lightning twice on the same day. That's what they reckon. Has anybody been struck by lightning just once in a day by any chance? Okay, and probably if we went around the whole room, nobody. So you have to have a better strategy than that. Harvard University back in the 1950s or 60s did some research with their students, and 10 years later those students who before, when they were first researched, had decided what they wanted to be and they'd got some idea and they'd got some vision and some goals, accounted for 90% of the wealth in the room of students 10 years on. So there's lots of evidence to say, I didn't think it was that good, but somebody just cheered over there. There's lots of evidence to suggest that if we've got that clear pathway. So when I first became country manager, which was in 1999, I've just gone through 20 years of being country manager in the UK. We were a very small business. Now, you don't need to applaud. I didn't get fired in 20 years. That's good. it was a very small business. Our success days were less people than we have in this pod today. We were literally just getting started. The company was established overseas successfully, but there was still the feeling, perhaps, for anybody joining the UK business, will this opportunity work with the sceptical British? There was no success stories at a success day that we could say, oh, this person's done this person's done that. It was tiny, tiny, tiny. And I remember with the staff trying to set a vision of what might be possible. And I found a couple of the slides that I used in the early days there. And all that came from my understanding of goal setting, my understanding of vision. And that came from when I was 19 reading this book, Think and Grow Rich. It's 40 years old now, this book, or no, probably even more than that, 50 years old perhaps. It's still as relevant today. It's not an easy read, but still as relevant today as it was 50 years ago, probably more relevant. Written by a guy called Napoleon Hill, who was commissioned at that point by one of the wealthiest individuals in America, who said to Napoleon Hill, who was a budding journalist, I want you to go and interview 500 of the wealthiest people in America and see if you can find any common denominators. Now, I want you to read the book. However, I can tell you what the book is in summary. It's the title. What they discovered was these industrialists, these successful entrepreneurs, these people who'd inherited wealth, came from all sorts of different backgrounds. However, the common thing was they thought differently to the rest of the population. Think and grow rich. And that's where my idea or my concept of goal setting came from. It didn't come from school, didn't come from my parents. It came from reading material like this, where the evidence suggests if I really know what I want, I'm likely to get it. So when I stepped into the role in 1999, the first bit of vision was to try and say to the business owners then and to the staff then, we might not be big at the moment. We're only a 5 million business, but we could be a 100 million business. We could be a 500,000 business. And you need to start visualizing that, because if you can see it, you can achieve it. Your whole energy, the way your brain works, which we'll talk about in a second, differs if you know what you want. You need to be in control of those thoughts. And one of my very first slides was to paint the picture of what the car park at Longbridge Manor might look like when we get there. Rather than some of the beat-up old cars we've got on the car park back then, we could have Ferraris, we could have Porsches, we could have Lamborghinis on there. So people can begin to visualise, well, this is what it's like now, but actually this is what it could look like. And if I can live in this, what it could look like, I am more likely to get there. Does that resonate with you? So think about what that means to you. Where do you see yourself in 12 months' time or 5 years' time? Do you see yourself in the same house, driving the same car, doing those things? Because if you do, that's where you will be. If, however, you see it could be different and start to clearly visualise that, there's a much greater chance that if you do the activity as well, you will be there. Now, obviously, we need to upgrade the Longbridge Manor slide now, because there are Porsches and Ferraris and some very nice cars there. So, for the future, we're changing the car park, because, there's going to be the only person, actually, we have had one person arrive in Longbridge Manor in the grounds by helicopter, and that was David Urch. A true story, yeah. He was coming to a meeting and his son is a helicopter pilot and had a small helicopter, and he flew David in. No problem at all. As the day went on, however, and we were having the meeting, the winds got up, and if you've been to Longbridge Manor, there's some pretty big trees. And when they tried to get the helicopter back off the ground with David in it, whoa, all the staff came out to watch, because it was pretty... Whoa. I'm thinking I'll have to phone Rex and tell him there's a helicopter stuck up his oak tree, you know what I mean? But thankfully he managed to get away. So lots and lots of evidence over the years, lots and lots of people have written about the importance of goals. A person without goals is like a ship without a rudder, or a car without a steering wheel. You have to have a clear idea of what you want from this business. And for me, one of the sad things about our opportunity, the good thing about our opportunity is it's easy for anybody to get into. They don't need a particular educational background, or they don't need money. They just need an idea of where they want to go. Sadly, very many people don't join with a vision. They just join thinking that I'm in business for myself now. I'm an entrepreneur. That must mean I'm going to be successful. Absolutely not the truth. And that's why often in organisations you see people who don't get past the starting point. And it's because they don't have the vision or the goal to protect them from people knocking them off track along the way, or the vision or the goal to give them the excitement or the energy that they need in order to push forward. I'm looking at this clock here and it's all over the shop. Can you just make sure I'm 45 minutes from when I started, because otherwise I'm going to be in trouble again. Confucius says a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one small step. So the other thing about goal setting is, have that vision of where you want to be, but recognize it's going to be a step at a time. So this is about focusing on the activities that we do to get us to the goal. So record what you're doing. Make sure you're doing enough of what you're doing, and make sure you're doing what you're doing in the right way. So daily, weekly, record the action steps that you're going to take, and recognize that sometimes the results won't come straight away. So it's a never give up principle again. You know what you want to do, and you're going to work daily towards that. And recognize that it's your brain that controls this. You're not who you think you are, what you think you are. Confusing, but think about it. Sometimes we're not even conscious of what we're thinking about. We have this big goal that we write down once a year, but we don't actually focus on it every day. We don't get energized by it every day. We don't carry around with it. We don't live it. And be conscious of what we're thinking positively or thinking negatively, moving towards it, we're not, because we absolutely become what we think about most of the time. So do I think about most of the time that I'm a successful entrepreneur, or do I think about most of the time, what are people going to think of me if I'm talking to them about a business opportunity or Forever's products? So be very clear on what you want, but equally importantly, be conscious of what you're thinking about in your day-to-day activity. Be more self-conscious of your thoughts. I don't know about you, but maybe an example of this, I haven't had many people admit to me that they're a highly negative person. I've met hundreds of highly negative people who, when you talk to them, think they're positive. Ever had that? My own brother's one of them. My Nicola's mother, oh my God, my mother-in-law, wow, the most negative woman on the planet. And here's a cautionary tale. One night after dinner with her and her husband, and I'd had a few beers, I happened to comment I didn't think she was so positive. I realised that wasn't a smart thing to do. Whoa, off the scale. I'm the most supportive, positive person you'll ever meet. And for me, just an example of the fact that people really don't know what they're thinking, and their thoughts control their actions. So make sure that you become what you want to be, and that comes from being what you think about all the time. So this is about, if you want to achieve something, you sometimes have to be in a different place mentally to the place that you're in now. And I believe that most people don't achieve their goals, not because they don't have the talent, but for one of two reasons. Either their thought process is wrong, and their thought process is wrong because the goal isn't clear enough, or the goal's clear and the thought process is right, but they just don't work hard enough or long enough to do it. Is that fair? There literally is no secret to success. It's written everywhere. We just choose sometimes to ignore it or not engage with it fully enough. Does that make sense? Yeah. And the goal setting is a key part of that. So when we talk about goal setting, and at this time of year, take some time out. I'm going to share with you the tools that I use for my personal goals, but they don't have to be your tools too. You need to find a methodology that works for you. But what I would say is make your goal setting holistic. Don't just make it about material things or work. Think about your health. Think about spiritualism, or how you want to stay mentally strong, meditation, that sort of thing. You know, your health and fitness goals. It's impossible to be a peak athlete. And let's face it, if you want to be a professional networker, you need to be a peak athlete at the top of your game. It's impossible to do that if you're not healthy. You know, you don't want to be achieving all your goals but ignore your family, so your whole social life and relationships are falling apart. So it needs to be a holistic approach. So like in my personal goals, for example, I have to make a conscious effort. I love my kids, but I literally need to discipline myself to make sure there is time in my diary to see my kids, because I could easily work 24 hours a day everywhere. And so it might seem stupid, but if it's on your goal list and you're looking at it, you go, right, that's what I need to do. And when you look back on your goal list over the years, as I do, you don't always achieve all your goals. That's okay too. You want a goal that stretches you. What you want to do, if you haven't achieved it at the end of the year, is look at it again, say, is that still important to me? Is that still something I want to achieve? Then let's put it on next year's goal list. Let's tweak it maybe a little bit. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about there. And it's always true that if you overestimate what you can achieve in a year, then you'll underestimate what that will look like down the road. So Before we get into methodology, it doesn't really matter what the goal is as long as it's important to you. So one of the most powerful stories I have from our business owner base is our leading business owner in Ireland is a lady called Marion Fitzgerald. She's been one of our top business owners for over 20 years. If you ever hear her story, her original goal when she joined Forever Living, well, the thought was she needed to change her way of life. She was working too hard. She never saw her family, and so she knew that she needed to make some changes, and she wasn't sure whether Forever would work for her. So the original goal she set herself for 1 month starting off was, if I can earn enough money to get a new set of curtains for the lounge, that's my goal. And she got that. She got the set of curtains. And once she got the set of curtains, it started to prove to herself that the business would work for her. She went on to set other goals. Now, Marion now owns several houses around the world as a result of her Forever business. So the whole curtain issue has become much bigger than it was when she got started. But the point is, it's about that'll prove to me, that's important to me, and that'll mean that I can prove to myself that this works. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. Now, I've got a couple of people helping me through this session, their thoughts on goal setting, and I met Frank some while ago. He's a key member of the London Product Centre team. There works hard there. He's got a really interesting background. So I asked Frank to come and share with you what he thinks the key principles of goal setting are. So give a big welcome to Frank Briggs. Frank, we can sit if you want, might be more comfortable.
Hi Bob.
Hello, mate.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good.
Just tell our little group then just a little bit about your background.
Well, before Forever, I was a very successful businessman and had offices in 5 different countries. Even 2 countries, I had 2 offices. For example, in Ghana, I had 2 offices, one in Kumasi and one in Accra. In Nigeria, I had 2 as well, one in Lagos and one in Port Harcourt. But the business was doing fine and I never had a plan B. But as it will happen, I mean, the business collapsed. There was no plan B at all. I enjoyed everything, every bit of the business. I enjoyed it. And you imagine, before I got to my branch in Ghana, they have booked hotel. My car was waiting for me at Kotoka International Airport. The same thing to Lagos. Life was good. But unfortunately, I never had a plan B. And I thought it was going to last forever. And when it collapsed, my world caved in. My confidence was low. Let me put it that way. It was low, Bob. And I had to pick myself up again. And as the saying goes, the downfall of a man is not the end of his life. What do? Are you going to stay there and feel sorry for yourself? No. I started looking. And fortunately, I had good friends. My upline, her sister, they were my friends before I came into Forever. They told me about the business and I said, no, listen, Philo, listen, Eva, I have seen money. I've handled money. What are you telling me? They left me for a while. I started consuming the products.
Yeah.
Anytime I run out of the product, I'll call, Philo, I need one gel, please. She wouldn't hesitate. She will give it to me. Once in a while, she will remind me. And suddenly, I can still vividly recall, we were eating at a restaurant. And Eva said to me, have a look at this business, that you can use it as a vehicle. Bob, I got home that night. I did not sleep a wink.
That's what we say at the end of presentations, don't sleep.
Because of that word, you can use it as a vehicle. Meanwhile, all these years they've been talking about it, they've been telling me about it, but it's like it never made sense. In fact, I also attended 2 Forever parties, and I wined and dined and enjoyed everything, but still, until that word touched me. Let me put it that way. Now, finally, when Philo said, are you ready? In fact, I grabbed the form from her and then I said, what do I do next? And that was it.
The rest is history, as
The
they
rest
say.
is history.
So I know from talking to you before that you were conscious of goal setting before Forever, but when you've come into Forever, you know that that's a big part of what we do. And I asked you for 4 principles around goal setting, which we have on the screen now, which you said to me: a personal belief and faith, clear vision, courage, and action. So talk us through these 4 key principles as you see them for goal setting.
Right. If I have to sort of elaborate on each, it might take a whole day, but let's just, take it one step at a time and briefly. Now, before you embark on any journey in life, you've got to have a vision and a plan. Now, Bob, as you rightly pointed out, that without vision, my people perish.
Yeah.
You cannot embark on anything at all in life without having a clear vision of where you are going. Now, even big structures, edifices, or whatever, they have plan, and you have to follow the plan meticulously. Now, when I came into Forever, I noticed that the big players, the big leaders, Jane Leach, Diana Page, Emma Cooper, they always talk about, goal setting. And what do? You've got to put your goal and whatever ideas you've got on paper. Now, you've got to have a dream board. Now, you wake up, you see the dream board. You go to the toilet, you look at it, the dream board is looking at you. Now, you are likely to attract what you see on a daily basis. Because the universe is funny. It's whatever we want in life is out there. It is for us now to walk into whatever the blessings are there. There is nothing new. But it's only you that can impede yourself if you don't make that move.
Yeah.
Now, when you have a dream board, it actually accelerates consciously. It accelerates your vision and your goal. Without a dream board of some sort, I guess you are not going to get anywhere. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because that vision gets weaker and weaker and
weaker
fades.
and weaker. And we go through the fog of life. And what is going to give you that clear vision? It is what you are seeing. Imagine, you are used to a particular radio station. And what happens? You listen to the music, always a music you never loved from the beginning. Suddenly, because you are hearing it, you start singing it to the same tune. It's because constantly you are hearing it, you are seeing it. In fact, when you spend time with something, you attract that thing attracts you. It's a principle of life. So it's important for you to have a vision if you want to move forward.
So when you get the vision, one of the other things you talked about is getting that personal belief and faith. What do you do to work on that? I think a lot of people say, well, I'd love that vision, but can I actually do that?
Well, as human beings, you will agree with me that we do discourage ourselves. Your mind is very important.
Yeah.
Now, the people I work with in my team, both here and abroad, the very first thing I do is to set their mind in proper order. And how do I do that? Like a child, when a child comes to this world newly, whatever you feed or whatever is fed into the child is what the child grows up with.
Yeah.
Now, what do? You increase their faith. Faith is important. Faith is substance of things not seen or evidence of things not seen. So it is crucial that your faith level is increased. Now, that will now affect your belief. It catapults your belief to a different height. So regardless of whatever storm is around you, you become unshakable.
Yeah. And then you talked about courage. It takes courage to stick to that when people are saying it won't work and it's impossible and it's crazy.
I say everything is possible. Now, as a young man, I remember I was walking on Oxford Street with my dad, and I saw a car. To be precise, it was a Mercedes. And I said, Dad, I'm going to buy that car. He said, son, just take it easy.
Calm down.
Do you know 5 years later I bought the car? Because I was like focused
Yeah.
that I was going to buy it,
Yeah.
and nothing stopped me.
Yeah.
Now, courage is important. Regardless of whatever marketing plan we've got, the finest of ideas, if you don't have courage, I guess it's not going to move
No.
any further. Now, in the book of Proverbs, it says, iron sharpeneth iron. You don't use wood to sharpen iron. Now, you've got to mix with people who are high up, let me put it that way, people who can infect,
Yeah.
put value into your life.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm your friend, if you don't bring value to the table, what have we got in common? I'm sorry, I mean, it's not in a bad way, but
No.
You've got to bring something, to the table.
It's true, and it doesn't mean you can't be friends anymore, but it does mean you need to be conscious of people that are helping you, supporting
helping
you
you, yes.
towards your
So-
goals,
so-
and those who are pulling you away
we've
from
got
your
to
goals.
sharpen each other,
Yeah.
because iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Do you see? I mean, you don't expect wood to sharpen iron.
No.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So beware of people who are around you.
Taken away from you.
It's important because they feed you. We feed each other. We feed each other.
And then your final point was, you need to be taking that consistent action to moving towards your goals.
Yes, that aspect is also extremely important because we've mentioned everything, but you've got to take action. I mean, if, for example, you have this hand tied to this chair for a month, when you get up, after a month, you will learn how to use that hand because it has been tied to that place without being used. So our body, our brain, everything about us is like that. You've got the finest marketing plan. You've got everything. Now, what do? Are you going to sit on it? You got to go out there because you've got to do the do.
Yeah.
And it's only the doing that does it. It's only the doing. There is no two ways about it.
Thank you, Frank. Good insight into your thoughts on goal setting, personal belief and faith, getting a clear vision, having the courage like the lion, and then taking some action.
Thank you very much.
Let's give it up for Frank, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
man.
you, Bob.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Bob.
So, I want to share with you the methodology I use. Very many of you are familiar with Brian May, and I've used his material for lots and lots of years. There's a link I'll give you at the end of this where you can get a greater insight into his concept. What I like about Brian's concept is the use of the whole brain. You can read more about it in his book Goal Mapping. You can get it from Knowledge is King or order it online. And on the right hand side, an example of what one of Brian's goal maps looks like when you're working with it. So it basically gives you a list of things that you need to be focused on to achieve the goals that we talked about. And what I like about it is it uses the whole brain. In Brian's book, if you didn't already know, he talks about the billions literally of brain cells that we've got. He talks about two really important aspects that help us with goal setting. The first is the left hand side and the right hand side of our brain, and to determine which side we are more focused on, but it engages with both. Whereas when we talk about vision boards, for example, that's primarily a visualization, a right side brain activity. Some of us may be more left side brain, and the idea of connecting the brain is that we make those connections. So the idea of the goal is that it connects the cells together in a powerful way. So we have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind tuned in the right direction. And of the two, of course, our subconscious mind will be the most powerful because that's what drives our beliefs. And it's visualization of our goal that makes that connection. So I would encourage you to look at Brian's material, because he'll do a much better job than I will of explaining the science behind it. But as I said before, it doesn't really matter what the methodology is, you need to find one that works for you. So goal setting helps make more connections in our brain, and that means that we keep our brain on track. Because one of the things that our brain can easily do, particularly our conscious mind, is to get knocked off track. Again, in the book and in other areas, you'll see amazing amount of evidence about the power of the brain. But one of the things that the brain cannot do is determine between a real or a vividly imagined event. And evidence for you of this is that you will all have at some point in the past, or maybe fairly frequently have, when you're asleep at night, a dream that is so real that you wake up in a cold sweat, or wake up screaming, or jump out of bed. And that was not a real event, it was a vividly imagined event. So part of Brian's methodology is, let's harness that, let's control that, and make these vividly imagined events the visions or the goals that we want in the future. Because if we do that, we'll create that chemical reaction in our body that keeps us focused and on track for our goal achievements. I'm clicking the button, guys. I need another slide. Let's go. So, how his goal maps look when you work with them is a combination of the left side of the brain, the logical there, the words, and the right side, the visualization. And as I said, I'll give you a link at the end of this where you can go online, and he's got literally tons and tons of free material that you can use and explore, so that if goal setting is new for you and you're looking for a methodology, then Brian's methodology is one that you should consider. So take a little look at goal mapping. So if you put into Google search goal mapping, or Lift International is the name of his company, you'll see that he's got stacks and stacks of free material there that'll help you develop a goal map for yourself, or perhaps several goal maps. He's also, by the way, got a lot of material for children, and it's not a bad idea to get your kids involved in some sort of goal setting or visualization too, and that can be a really powerful thing to do. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to my second guest now, who is a big advocate of goal setting and uses both Brian's material and some vision board. Her name's Katie Gibbons. So Katie, come join me on stage. Give her a warm round of applause. Nice to see you, sweetie. How are you?
How are you
trying
doing?
the clash microphone.
Oh,
there you go. Come and sit down. Tell us about your goal setting then, Katie. I know you've got some vision boards with you. And
Yep, I've brought some along, and just want to say thank you for this opportunity, because
nice to have you here.
Ironically, one of my goals on my goal boards was to have a session speaking at Success Day, and overcoming that big hurdle of public speaking and sharing your passion. So the fact that I'm actually here talking about goal boards when it was on my goal board is,
so this phrase
really
of
cool.
What you think about you get is
Yes.
evidence today. So
Yeah,
be careful what you think about then. If you don't want to speak on stage, don't think about it. Yeah.
exactly.
Great to have you here.
Thank you. So with goal boards, everything that Frank said I completely relate to, and I've also done that training as well, and it's really, really powerful, and it's about lifting that money mindset. So I don't know if anyone's heard here when they were growing up or in life, but the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. I think it was on Robin Hood as well.
Yeah.
And money goes to money, and that was something that growing up I was sort of surrounded by that money mindset. I very much linked money to stress and worry and not having enough of it. It's making me quite emotional, which I wasn't expecting, but that was kind of the mindset that I had. And I also heard a lot of kind of conversations around jealousy around money. And having I've learned this as an adult reflecting back, but that feeling of almost like you're owed something, or there's an expectance there when you're lacking it.
Yeah.
So when I started doing a lot of self-development and personal growth, I wanted to change a lot of the neurons, the childhood habits that I'd learned. So I went on a personal development journey, which lots of us do via this company, just by working on our mindset and looking at ways to grow. So I did that just before coming into Forever, actually. I quite quickly learned that I really needed to work on my money mindset, and that's a big part of goal setting, because we all have a cap on what we believe we are worth, especially if we've been in a particular income-based position for such a long time. We believe that's what our self-worth is, or it can go back to childhood as well. So it's called money preservation, so sort of putting yourself as a block to achieving more. And so goal boards, for all those reasons that Frank mentioned, is a way of lifting those limiting beliefs, and starting to allow more in, but it directly affects our actions, our daily habits. So whether we sit and watch EastEnders or Game of Thrones or whatever every evening, or whether we sit and send 10 prospecting voice notes, or 20 follow-up customer messages, it's all linked to our cap, what we believe our self-worth is. And when we've got a vision board,
and these, of course, these limiting beliefs don't just apply to money, they apply to the way we think about ourselves, whether we could ever see ourselves as a successful entrepreneur, as a successful parent, as a successful husband or wife. It's really, really important, to my mind, to try and identify in your own mind what those limiting beliefs are, and they can often be about money. You know, the environment I grew up, my mum would often say money is the root of all evil, you know, so oh my god, you don't want to be rich because you'll be evil, you know, which obviously is not true, but those are some of the limiting beliefs that you can get. So it's interesting.
And although I'm saying money mindset, the reason I'm saying that it links into everything that you've just said, because we can hold ourselves back from our success in regards to just feeling successful or the next milestone in our business, because we believe we don't deserve that subconsciously. So to make another kind of point here, actually, oh God, this is all a bit personal. I didn't know this was going to come out, but no, it's fine.
I've got some tissues in my pocket ready though, so don't worry too much.
But there was a particular role model in my life that said once to me that if I ever, geez, I can't believe I'm getting
deep
emotional.
breath.
If I ever went to university, it's actually really funny as well. If I ever got to university, I would run down the street naked, and then the whole room of my family was like cracking up because it's such a ridiculous thing that I would ever reach something like that. So part of the... Sorry.
Take your time. If it's any consolation, my headmaster said to me when I left school, and with mutual agreement with him, I'd either end up broke or in jail. So he didn't threaten to run down the street naked, which is a great shame. I'd have loved to have seen it.
Yeah, exactly, because there's lots of comedy around that kind of thing. I think for me it's just sitting like quite deep, because there was lots of like jokes about my lack of intelligence and lots of things that kind of put me down as a child. So part of the money mindset and the success, I think when you start to work on your goals, your needs first and then what you want from life. So what you need is often a lot easier to put down, isn't it? I need to pay this bill, I need to replace this income so I have time with the children. Like, they're a lot easier to set those goals, and we reach our cap. But it's the wants that we need to work on, and that's what's going to drive us forward. That's what's going to get us to jump up early in the morning to work because it's the excitement that drives us. But that's the part that people sometimes struggle with, and sometimes it's much more the feeling of recognition and the success that drives us than the money. But the money can be holding us back because we believe we don't deserve that. But actually it's more the feeling of success, the feeling of actually, I can do, I am worth, you know, and I can do it. But we have to work on our goals to get us,
you know, maybe that. If you haven't already written it on your pad, you know, maybe between now and the end of the year, what are my limiting beliefs? You know, what do I need to really face up to that's holding me back?
Yeah, definitely. So can I share with you my first
goal
board?
We can't wait.
I think it's on the screen
as well. So I click this button for you then?
Yes, please.
Why supervisor?
So this is not a glossy picture one at first.
Doesn't need to be.
No, it doesn't have to be. Although we know that it's much more powerful to talk to the right and left hand side of the brain. So we went on to do that, obviously. But the first time, just get them down, and then you can create your pictures and things. So I was really optimistic because I believed that my first product launch, I would reach supervisor and have 25 cc's.
It's good to have good goals, big goals. Yeah, lovely. Must have been a good audience.
But I had my needs, so I had my needs, and some of my wants. One of my wants was for
New
to pay
bed.
for, yeah. Oh yeah,
Lease
it's on
new
there.
car.
Yes.
Book holiday.
Yeah. So I must have done it a couple of times, which you do, don't you?
What's the
So you write-
football?
What did I put?
Indie nursery.
Sol to,
Oh,
yeah.
Sol, is that your son?
Sol, yeah.
Sorry,
Sol to
okay.
football.
I say Sol-
Indie to
Sol
nursery,
football,
because I had two. My little ones were at home with me, so they were both little. So I wanted a little bit of
I love it.
nursery time. But also my mum's new teeth was on here as
Your
well.
mum's new teeth.
So yeah. So this didn't happen by July, but it didn't matter because my needs were so strong, and I was getting excited by my whys,
Yeah.
and I was looking at this every day, and it was so attached that I just kept going anyway. So I ended up hitting supervisor after 6 months, nearly 7 months,
Great.
just with retail. So I
Yeah.
hadn't built a team.
Yeah.
But then has anyone had a I'm going to quit moment? I'm sure everybody
Yeah.
has.
Lots of weeks,
Everybody.
actually. Yeah.
So then I had a I'm going to quit moment, which is really interesting because I was capping myself.
Yeah.
And my husband was very sceptical at the beginning of the business. Sometimes we have this with a partner, don't we? Because they don't understand and they see you doing something different, and they don't understand it. But it was him that actually said, no, look at the effort you've just put in for the nearly 7 months.
Yeah.
You've hit your first promotion, like crack on. And that's when I did a proper goal board, which is... and
Slide 2. Shall I click?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So here's some of them.
Oh, these are colourful.
So yeah, I got a bit more serious and I took Frank's advice kind of style. I had dates written down as well of when I was going to achieve them and how much it meant. But there's my stage, and what I would visualise with this is being at Success Day.
Yeah.
And I got serious as well with like my children as well. So I asked them to say what I put some stepping stones in. So we couldn't afford to go and do like nice day trips with the kids or anything at this point, so I asked them where would they like to go. So Solomon said Shrek World, Indy said Wonderland, Winter Wonderland. So we had a London trip, and I was able to use my retail to pay for that, but I was also progressing. So from here I went from first team member to manager in 4 months, because every
That's
morning
amazing.
I was getting up and visualizing it. But it wasn't just that, it was the fact that I was open to the activity, taking it more seriously, getting organised, started sending the voice notes.
So the other principle here that Katie's talking about, which is a really important principle for you with your goal setting, is when you have that goal, share that goal with somebody that you can trust, because then you become more accountable. And this is why it works so well with your kids. You know, if you've said to your kids, where would you like to go for the day out, or where would you like to go for your holiday? I'd like to go there, Mom and Dad. You really wouldn't want to let those kids down.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you haven't got children or whatever, or that's not the arena, find somebody that you can trust to share the goal with. That somebody needs to be a supportive person, by the way. But in the sharing of the goal, we are more likely to take the action.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else really powerful happened from this. When I was in the shower, I could hear, our bathroom's downstairs, I could hear like lots of laughing and giggling. And when I got out the shower, poked my head into the living room, the kids were showing my husband the goal board and
Brilliant.
what they'd helped to put on there, and he was taking a real interest. So it suddenly, and I'd put, you know, there's a picture of, I'm sure there was a picture of him, there's a picture of him on there, so he saw that he was actually included in my long-term vision. It wasn't
He's
just...
probably relieved about that, I think. Yeah. In my experience, the other alternative is very expensive, so...
So yeah, and then obviously, so my current goal board, they kind of got better and better in regards to letting go of that limiting belief and letting myself dream more and more. And this is my current one, and every single morning I spend just a couple of minutes. This is on, I've got a few of these, but this one was on my wall in my aloe room. And so I sit in front of it, I do a guided 6-minute meditation, which is of whatever I choose, and then I visualise this. So this is my sister, and there's a few other team members that I know really want chairman's bonus. And so I close my eyes and imagine being on stage, God, I'm getting emotional again, with those particular team members, and the excitement, the joy we're feeling together.
Perfect.
Picking up our check, it is so real, and I feel it when I'm visualising it. So what do I do when I've done that? I work.
Yeah.
I instantly work, and there's smaller goals along the way, like being able to say yes. There's a few things even now at senior manager, you know, I'm paying my bills comfortably, we've got a couple of holidays a year and a nice car,
Yep.
but we're not in a position where we can say yes to everything still. We've got a couple of weekends away that we had to say no to, and
Yeah.
so it's being able, which was a bit awkward, like, sorry, no, we can't quite do that. So just being able to say yes with my husband as well to everything that we want to, and again, I visualise that, and
So
yeah,
just
gets you working.
to jump in there for a second too, you know, the key thing here is that each day we have to find some time in our schedule that we can stop, focus, visualize and re-engage with those goals. So going through the process of goal setting is one thing, but staying connected to them is more important. I think it must have been Barry, because he knows sometimes I don't get up too early in the morning. He sent me the 6 a.m. club book. I don't think I never could quite make that, but I'm working on the 7 a.m. club, and the concept is we make some time in our day, and ideally first thing in the day where we get up, we do meditation or whatever we need to do, but most importantly focus our brain on what it is we set ourselves as goals. And that's really what you're talking about there, Katie, that time to re-engage, and as you say, that then gives you the emotional connection, reconnection with them to make it happen. Yeah.
And then the last thing I was just going to mention, Bob, was I had a team member recently who has just reached her assistant manager position, which is obviously
Fantastic.
really, really exciting
Yeah.
for her. And her upline, so she's within my downline team, but her upline manager had quit. And so she asked me a question of, why do some managers quit?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to share that, because I was having a think about that
Yeah.
too. And I know actually exactly why this particular manager did. And it's because she didn't have a goal board. She didn't
Yeah.
have a need or a want for money. She actually wasn't doing forever because of a financial need at all. She had given up work and was just in a bit of limbo with her children and
Yeah.
wanted something to feel successful, because she'd always been successful at work.
Yeah.
So she had her goal set on manager for a success reason rather than financial. So when she got to manager, she had
No
nothing
reason.
else to go for. The money was kind of irrelevant to her because she was in a very comfortable position within
Yeah.
her family situation. So she just didn't have a drive.
Where there's no vision, people perish.
Yeah, whereas she could have gone on to feel more successful than she's ever felt.
Yeah.
Success was her drive, but she hadn't created a goal, a path.
The next vision.
Yeah.
And think about that, you know, some of our really highly successful FBOs are in a position where financially they never need to work again, but they still are at every event, they're still doing stuff. So their vision now isn't about financial, it's about how many people can I help, who can I impact on, what can I do to my community, you know, so we're always resetting our goals, always thinking further on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie, you've been brilliant. Stay with me though, because we're just about to finish this session. And this session then is about, we've identified what we want, we've got a clear vision of what we want, we're committed to it, we know that we need to refocus or re-engage with those goals on a daily basis, and what we need to do then is translate that into our forever world. How do we connect those goals with our forever business? And this is simple to do. It's about looking through that first steps to manager, and in the early stages of our goal setting we anchor the income that we need in order to achieve those goals with the position on the marketing plan, and then we learn to understand what we need to do activity-wise in order to arrive at that position. So through the first steps to manager, we've got examples of incomes that you could expect if you build the business in the right way. And if the goals are a bit bigger, or you achieve the first set of goals, like Marion with her curtains, she got that supervisor. What do I do next? Assistant manager, what am I going to do goal-wise around that? Manager, what am I going to do around that? And then of course manager and beyond, you can look at the income levels there. So visualize what you want, be clear on what you want across those categories, and then determine what do I need to do in order to do that within the context of the vehicle that will help me get there.